Every school in the world teaches the same story. Ferdinand Magellan led the first expedition to circumnavigate the globe. That is true. But here is the question that nobody ever thought to ask. Who was on that ship before Magellan? There was a man aboard the expedition who had already crossed those same waters, who already knew those islands, who may have spoken the language of the people they were sailing to find. His name was not recorded in any history book as a hero. He was recorded as property. His name was Enrique, and if the evidence is right, he was the first human being to circle the world. Not Magellan, not Elcano, Enrique. In 1511, the city of Malacca was the greatest trading port in Asia. 100,000 people lived within its walls. Chinese merchants, Arab traders, Indian spice brokers, Javanese sailors, all of them moving through the same harbor, speaking a dozen different languages, buying and selling everything the world had to offer, including people. Malacca was also the greatest slave market in Southeast Asia. Enslaved people from across the archipelago, from the islands to the east, the coasts to the south, the rivers to the north, passed through its harbor and were sold. In July 1511, a Portuguese fleet arrived. Ferdinand Magellan was among them. The Portuguese captured the city, and in the aftermath of that conquest, Magellan acquired a slave. The slave was approximately 18 years old. His birthplace was not recorded. His real name was not recorded. Magellan called him Enrique. Magellan's will, written years later, describes him as a native of the city of Malacca, where he was captured and enslaved. Those last 5 words matter: where he was captured and enslaved, not where he was born. Malacca was a trading hub, an entire city built on the movement of goods and people from across the region. An 18-year-old sold in Malacca could have come from anywhere within 1,000 miles. We do not know where Enrique was born, but someone did. Enrique knew. For 8 years, Enrique traveled with Magellan. From Malacca to Portugal, from Portugal to Spain, learning Spanish, learning Portuguese, watching Europe from the inside of a life he had not chosen. In August 1519, Magellan stood before the Spanish king and proposed something that had never been attempted: a westward route to the Spice Islands, around the bottom of the world. The king agreed. 5 ships, 270 men, and Enrique. On September 20th, 1519, the fleet departed from Sanlúcar de Barrameda, a small coastal town at the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, and sailed out into the Atlantic. They crossed the Atlantic. They hugged the coast of South America for months, searching for a passage through. In October 1520, they found it, a narrow, treacherous channel at the bottom of the continent. Cold, gray water, dramatic stone cliffs, storms that could swallow a ship. It took 38 days to navigate. On November 28, 1520, they entered the Pacific Ocean. They had no idea how wide it was. 98 days at sea, no land, no fresh water. Men dying of scurvy, eating sawdust and leather to survive. On March 6, 1521, they reached the Marianas, and on March 16, 1521, Magellan's fleet sighted an island in the eastern Visayas. Enrique looked at the shore. Three weeks later, the expedition reached the island of Cebu. Ginés de Mafra, one of the expedition's own officers, recorded in his eyewitness account that Enrique had been brought on the voyage for one specific reason. Because he was known to speak Malay, the language spoken in the Southeast Asia archipelago. On April 7, 1521, Enrique spoke to the people of Cebu, and they understood him. Now, this is the moment that Filipino historians point to as evidence that Enrique was born in these islands. If he was born here, if these were the waters he had grown up sailing, the language he had spoken as a child, then on April 7, 1521, Enrique of Malacca had traveled east all the way to Spain, and then west all the way back to where he started. A circle around the entire world. But here is what the evidence actually says. Antonio Pigafetta, the expedition's own chronicler, the man who documented everything, called Enrique a Malay native of Sumatra, not the Philippines, Sumatra. And Mafra himself was explicit. The language Enrique spoke was Malay. Malay was the lingua franca of the entire region, spoken from Sumatra to Borneo, to the Visayas, to Maluku. The people of Cebu, understanding Enrique in Malay, does not prove he was born among them. Magellan's own will calls him a native of the city of Malacca, where he was captured and enslaved. We do not know where Enrique was born. What we know is this. A man was standing on a beach in the Visayas in April 1521 and speaking a language the people there understood. Whether that made him home, only Enrique knew. 3 weeks after the language moment, Magellan made a decision that would end his life. The chief of a small neighboring island, a man named Lapu-Lapu, had refused to submit to Spanish authority, refused to swear fealty to a king he had never seen, in a country he had never heard of. Magellan decided to make an example of him. On the morning of April 27, 1521, 60 Europeans landed on a coral beach in shallow water. Lapu-Lapu's warriors numbered between 1,500 and 3,000. The coral reef between the shore and the ships meant Magellan's men were wading through shallow water, their armor heavy, their movements slow. The cannons on the ships could not reach them. The musketeers fired for half an hour and exhausted their ammunition before the battle had barely started. Magellan was hit first by a poisoned arrow in the leg, then wounded in the arm by a spear, then struck in the left leg by a campilan, a large native sword. He collapsed. Multiple warriors overwhelmed him. Ferdinand Magellan, the man who had organized this expedition, who had enslaved Enrique at 18 years old, who had written a will promising him freedom, died on a coral beach in the Visayas. Lapu-Lapu's warriors recovered his body. Raja Humabon offered a ransom to return it. They refused. Enrique was also wounded in the battle. He survived. Magellan had written his will in 1519, before the expedition departed. I declare and ordain that from the day of my death, my said slave Enrique shall be free and manumitted. 10,000 maravedis, his freedom, his life back. The surviving Spanish commanders refused. They kept Enrique enslaved. A man who had traveled the world, who had crossed the Atlantic and the Pacific, who had survived a battle that killed his owner, kept in chains, because the men now in charge decided the will did not apply. On May 1st, 1521, 4 days after Magellan's death, Raja Humabon invited the Spanish officers to a feast. According to a later account by the Italian historian Giovanni Battista Ramusio, writing from second-hand sources, Enrique had warned Humabon that the Spanish were planning to capture him. Whether that is true cannot be confirmed. What can be confirmed is what happened next. The Spanish officers went to the banquet. Approximately 27 of them were killed. One survivor, João Serrao, was dragged to the shore, calling out to the ships to come and save him. He said that everyone who had gone to the feast was dead, except Enrique. After May 1st, 1521, Enrique disappears from every document, every record, every account. The Spanish wrote about everyone who survived, about the ships that limped home, about the 18 men who made it back to Seville on September 6, 1522. Enrique is not among them. Where did he go? The history books have an answer to the first circumnavigation. Juan Sebastian Elcano commanded the Victoria home. 18 survivors, September 6, 1522. That is documented, that is real, that stands. But somewhere on those same islands, sometime between May 1521 and September 1522, there may have been a man making his way across 2,500 kilometers of open water. Not in a ship with a crew of 270, alone, or on a local vessel, finding his way back to wherever he had come from. We do not know if he made it. We do not know where he was going. We do not even know his real name. But we know is this: a boy of 18 was taken from his home and sold into slavery in a harbor city. He spent a decade crossing the world in the service of a man who owned him. That man died and left him his freedom in a document, and the men who inherited the ships read the document and decided it did not matter. And then Enrique walked away. The first circumnavigation of the globe is one of the most celebrated achievements in human history. Every textbook names the captain. Nobody asked about the interpreter. His name was Enrique, and whether he made it home or not, he deserved to. History forgot his name. We didn't. This is Mr. L. Forgotten History. Subscribe, because every forgotten story deserves someone to tell it.